The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but the air in the studio was colder than usual. Everyone was hustling, lighting, makeup, last-minute script tweaks, until a sharp voice cut through the noise. "You're completely useless," the manager barked, eyes locked on the young woman holding a clipboard. Cameras stopped rolling, heads turned. Even the boom mic operator froze mid-air. The girl's face drained of color, her hands trembling slightly as she stared at the floor. And from his seat in the shadows, Denzel Washington looked up. He didn't speak, not yet. Just stared with that unreadable calm, like a lion waiting in tall grass. The manager, tall, pressed suit, ego 3 sizes too big, continued, voice rising for everyone to hear. "I don't know how you got this job, but you sure as hell don't belong here." A few people shuffled awkwardly, eyes darting between the girl and the man towering over her. But no one said anything. Not even the director. The silence was almost complicit. Except Denzel. His eyes didn't move from the scene, unblinking, unflinching. The young woman, mid-20s, clearly new, opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Her lips trembled as tears welled up, but she blinked them away with the strength of someone used to swallowing pain. "You forget a mic cue again, and I'll make sure you never work in this town," the manager sneered. The words hit like punches, sharp and loud in the quiet room. Someone in the crew whispered, "Damn," under their breath, but still no one moved, except Denzel, who slowly stood. His presence shifted the air like gravity had changed direction. The manager noticed, eyes flicking toward him with the smallest twinge of hesitation. Denzel didn't speak right away, just looked at the girl, then the manager, then back. The crew watched, unsure if this was part of a scene, but they felt it. This was no performance. And when Denzel finally took a step forward, the room stopped breathing. He walked slowly, deliberate, every move controlled like he was measuring his words in advance. The manager chuckled nervously. "Look, Denzel, I was just—" Denzel raised one finger. The laugh died instantly. The young woman looked up for the first time, her eyes meeting his, and something in them flickered, a tiny spark of hope. "I've been quiet long enough," Denzel said, voice like thunder wrapped in velvet. The words weren't loud, but they carried deep and certain, hitting everyone square in the chest. The manager took a step back, just one, but enough for everyone to notice. "You don't speak to people like that," Denzel continued. "Not here, not anywhere." The girl's lips parted, stunned. The room was utterly still. No one knew what he'd say next. The silence lingered like smoke after a blast. No one dared break it. But the manager did. He scoffed, trying to gather whatever control he still had. "Oh, come on," he said, waving a hand like swatting away a fly. "She messed up. I called it out. That's how it works in this business, right?" He looked around for agreement, but found only blank stares. Then he turned to Denzel with forced bravado. "You've been around. You know how green people slow everything down." Denzel's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in something deeper. Disappointment. "She's not slowing you down," he said. "Your ego is." A woman near the camera gasped audibly, hands clutched to her chest. Even the director mouthed, "Oh, damn." The manager chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Listen, I don't need a lecture from an actor." Denzel stepped closer, each word landing like bricks. "You don't need a lecture, you need a mirror." The girl flinched slightly, but not from fear, just disbelief that someone had finally stood up. Crew members were exchanging looks, some nodding slowly, like they'd all felt this man's venom before. The manager turned red, lips twitching in frustration. "You don't know how hard I work," he snapped. Denzel tilted his head, calm but fierce. "I know exactly how hard people work, the people you belittle to make yourself feel big." Gasps, audible ones. A few heads turned toward the girl. She wiped her cheek with her sleeve, but this time, she stood a little straighter. The manager scoffed again, trying to laugh it off. "You all done?" Denzel smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly. "You mistake fear for respect," Denzel said, voice low, powerful. And the saddest part is, you think no one sees it. The manager's jaw tightened. The room was no longer his. It belonged to truth now, and everyone felt it. A young man in lighting whispered, "I've waited years for this." But Denzel wasn't done. He turned back to the young woman. "What's your name?" he asked, soft but clear. She hesitated. "Ava," she whispered. He nodded. "Ava, you belong here." The manager opened his mouth to interrupt, but Denzel raised his hand again. The room held its breath as Denzel turned back to face the manager. "You know," he began, voice rich with reflection, "I met a man like you once." The manager crossed his arms, trying to seem unfazed, but his jaw clenched. He had power, thought humiliation was leadership. Denzel continued. Until the day his team walked away. People around the studio were still now, listening not just with ears, but with hearts. A woman near wardrobe wiped a tear from her cheek. Denzel's eyes never left the manager. He didn't realize he wasn't feared. He was just endured. A pause, and the moment people found courage, he had no one left to command. The words hung like thunderclouds, heavy and real. The manager shifted, suddenly aware of how quiet his defenders had become. One by one, heads were turning away from him and toward Denzel. "You think you're the reason the show runs," Denzel said, his voice unwavering. "But it's people like Ava who hold it together, while you tear it down." Ava's eyes filled again, but this time, with something warm. It was the first time someone had said her name with pride. The manager's face flushed. "You don't know what pressure I'm under." Denzel didn't flinch. Pressure doesn't justify cruelty. It reveals character. Someone in the crew let out a low, like a gospel hum. The energy in the room had shifted entirely, like Denzel had cracked open a window in a stuffy house. The manager swallowed hard, trying to gather his thoughts. But they didn't come. His arrogance was leaking, slowly being replaced by something else. Doubt. Denzel looked around the room. Anyone else ever been on the other side of that voice? Hands rose, hesitantly at first, then more. A production assistant, a makeup artist, even a senior sound tech. A wave of silent affirmation filled the space, louder than any accusation. The manager looked around, his army gone, and for the first time, he looked small. Denzel stepped closer, tone softer now. "You don't have to be this man," he said, "but if you stay him, you'll stand alone." The words didn't strike, they healed, even as they hurt. The manager looked down, struggling to hold the weight of his reflection. Denzel turned back to Ava. What happened next stunned everyone. Ava stood frozen, her name still echoing like a promise. Then Denzel did something no one expected. He turned and handed her the mic. "You have something to say," he said gently, "and the world's finally ready to hear it." Gasps scattered across the room. Even Ava looked stunned, lips parted. The manager opened his mouth, but not a word came out. Ava stepped forward slowly, eyes wide, voice trembling but firm. "I've been invisible here," she said. Talked over, laughed at, ignored. Her gaze locked onto the manager, and I took it because I thought that's what I had to do. A hush rolled through the studio like a tidal wave. Denzel stood beside her, silent, strong, unshakable. The manager's face turned pale. "But I don't need to shrink to keep your ego comfortable," she said, louder now. A few people clapped instinctively, then stopped, unsure if it was safe to cheer. Denzel raised his hand. "Let her finish," he said. And they did. The entire room listened like it was gospel. "You told me I was worthless," Ava continued, "but today I found out I'm not alone." Behind her, the crew began to rise, one by one. The manager took a step back. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "No," Denzel cut in sharply, voice like a closing door. "She's showing you the proportion. You just never cared to see it." Boom. A few people applauded again, louder now. No hesitation this time. The director wiped his face. Tears or sweat, no one could tell. Denzel turned to the room. We don't work in this industry to survive people like him. We work to create, to rise, to matter. No one gets to take that from you." Applause erupted, this time full force, unstoppable. A woman sobbed. A young man let out a shout. The manager looked around, utterly lost, stripped of power. And finally, he sat down. For the first time, he looked human. No more sneering, no more smugness. Just a man confronted with the truth of himself. Ava stood taller now, the mic still in her hand. Denzel nodded at her, silent approval that meant everything. The noise of the room was electric, filled with emotion and release. But one question remained. The room had shifted. The applause faded, but its weight remained. People looked at Ava differently now, not as an assistant, but as a voice. The manager sat silently, eyes fixed on the floor, his walls finally crumbled. Denzel stepped forward, quieting the room with nothing more than his presence. His voice was low, like a lesson shared between breaths. "You can't lead by fear and expect love to follow." He turned to the crowd, not as a star, but as a man. "I've seen greatness killed by silence. Don't be the silence," he said. People nodded. Some wept. Others clutched their hearts like something inside had just cracked open. The director walked over, placing a hand gently on Ava's shoulder. "You changed the room," he said, his voice breaking. But Ava shook her head. "He did." Denzel smiled at her, eyes soft. "No, you just remembered who you are." And somehow those words were louder than the shouts before. The crew gathered around her like she was magnetic, powerful in her vulnerability. Even the lighting guy who'd been quiet all morning stepped forward. "I've wanted to quit for months," he said. "But this changed things." Ava just nodded, overwhelmed but stronger than ever. Denzel turned one last time toward the manager. "You get to decide what happens next," he said calmly. "No one's canceling you, but if you want respect, earn it. Start now." The manager looked up slowly, tears threatening, lips trembling like someone who hadn't been seen in years. He gave a small, broken nod, and for the first time, he looked like he might try. The studio slowly returned to life, but nothing felt the same. The energy was softer, warmer, like light filtering through after a long storm. People hugged, laughed, cried, apologized. It wasn't just a moment, it was a movement, sparked by one voice refusing to stay silent. Ava tucked the mic away, then looked over at Denzel. "Thank you," she whispered. Denzel simply smiled. Pain is a teacher. What we do with it, that's the lesson. He walked toward the exit, leaving silence behind. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of reflection, full of hope. A new energy swirled around Ava now, one of recognition and, yes, respect. As the doors closed behind him, the crew erupted into applause, but Denzel never looked back. If this moment moved you, don't let it stop here. Share this story, speak up, be someone's Denzel. Subscribe for more stories that speak truth and spark change.